Chapter 16: Sustainable Management of Natural Resources. Living in harmony with nature is not new to us. Sustainable living has always been an integral part of India's tradition and culture. It has been integrated with our long-lasting traditions and practices, customs, art and crafts, festivals, food, beliefs, rituals, and folklore. Ingrained within us in the philosophy that entire natural world be in harmony, which is reflected in the famous phrase in Sanskrit, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that means the entire earth is one family. The phrase is mentioned in Maha-Upanishad, that is probably a part of the ancient Indian text, Atharva Veda. In class 9, we have already learnt about some natural resources like soil, air, and water, and how various components are cycled over and over again in nature. Also, we learnt in the previous chapter about the pollution of these resources because of some of our activities. In this chapter, we shall look at some of our resources and how we are using them. Maybe we should also think about how we ought to be using our resources so as to sustain them and conserve our environment. We shall be looking at our natural resources like forest, wildlife, water, coal, and petroleum and see what are the issues at stake in deciding how these resources are to be managed for sustainable development along with the input from our traditional practices. We often hear or read about environmental problems. These are often global level problems and we feel helpless to bring any change. There are international laws and regulations and then there are our own national laws and acts for environmental protection. There are also national and international organizations working towards protecting our environment. Activity. Find out about the international norms to regulate the emission of carbon dioxide. Have a discussion in class about how we can contribute towards meeting those norms. Comment this. Activity. There are a number of organizations that seek to spread awareness about our environment or promote activities and attitudes that lead to the conservation of our environment and natural resources. Find out about the organizations active in your neighborhood or village or town or city. Find out how you can contribute towards the same cause. Comment this. Awareness about the problems caused by unthinkingly exploiting our resources has been a fairly recent phenomenon in our society, and once this awareness rises, some action is usually taken. You must have heard about the Ganga Action Plan. This multi-crore project came about in 1985 because the quality of the water in the Ganga was very poor. Coliform is a group of bacteria and found in human intestine whose presence in water indicates contamination by disease-causing microorganisms. Figure total coliform counts level in the Ganga. Source Central Pollution Control Board 2012. Facial coliform levels from Gangotri to Diamond Harbour 0, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh. Most probable number MPN per 100 milliliter. 2007 red and 2011 blue. Gangotri, Rishikesh, Raiwala, Deoprayag, Roorkee, Kanpur, Allahabad, Varanasi, Patna, Mokawa, Berhampur, Dakshineshwar, Garden Reach, Palta, Diamond Harbour. Standard set by CPCB. Do you know pollution of the Ganga? The Ganga runs its course of over 2,500 kilometers from Gangotri in the Himalayas to Ganga Sagar in the Bay of Bengal. It is being turned into a drain by more than 100 towns and cities in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and West Bengal that pour their garbage and excreta into it. Largely untreated sewage is dumped into the Ganges every day. In addition, think of the pollution caused by other human activities like bathing, washing of clothes, and immersion of ashes or unburned corpses. And then, industries contribute chemical effluent to the Ganges pollution load, and the toxicity kills fish in the large section of the river. Namami Gange Programme is the integrated conservation mission approved as a flagship program by the Union government in June 2014. It was launched to accomplish the twin objectives of effective abatement of pollution conservation and rejuvenation of river Ganga. The National Mission for Clean Ganga is the implementation wing set up in October 2016. As you can see, there are some measurable factors which are used to quantity pollution or the quality of the water that we use for various activities. Some of the pollutants are harmful even when present in very small quantities, and we require sophisticated equipments to measure them. But as we learned in chapter 2, the pH level of water is something that can easily be checked using universal indicator. Activity: check the pH of the water supplied to your house using universal indicators or litmus paper. Also check the pH of the water in the local water body, pond, river, lake, stream. Can you say whether the water is polluted or not on the basis of your observation? Comment this. We need not feel powerless or overwhelmed by the scale of the problems, because there are many things we can do to make a difference. You must have come across the 5 R's to save the environment: refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. What do they refer to? Refuse. This means to say no to things people offer you that you don't need. Refuse to buy products that can harm you and the environment. Say no to single-use plastic carry bags. Reduce. This means that you use less. You save electricity by switching off unnecessary lights and fan. You save water by repairing leaky taps. Do not waste food. Can you think of other things that you can reduce the uses of? Reuse. This is actually even better than recycling, because the process of recycling uses some energy. In the reuse strategy, you simply use these things again and again. Instead of throwing away used envelopes, you can reverse it and use it again. The plastic bottles in which you buy various food item like jam or pickle can be used for storing things in the kitchen. What other items can we reuse? Repurpose. This means when a product can no more be used for the original purpose, think carefully and use it for some other useful purpose. For example, cracked crockery or cups with broken handles can be used to grow small plants and as feeding vessels for birds. Recycle. This means that you collect plastic, paper, glass, and metal items and recycle these materials to make required things instead of synthesizing or extracting fresh plastic, paper, glass, or metal. In order to recycle, we first need to segregate our wastes so that the material that can be recycled is not dumped along with other wastes. Does your village, town, city have a mechanism in place for recycling these materials? Even while making everyday choices, we can make environment friendly decisions. For doing this, we need to know more about how our choices affect the environment. These effects may be immediate or long term or long ranging. The concept of sustainable development encourages forms of growth that meet current basic human needs while preserving the resources for the needs of future generations. Economic development is linked to environment conservation. Sustainable development implies a change in all aspects of life. It depends upon the willingness of the people to change their perceptions of the socio-economic and environmental conditions around them and the readiness of each individuals to alter the present use of natural resources. Activity. Have you ever visited a town or village after a few years of absence? If so, have you noticed new roads and houses that have come up since you were there last? Where do you think the materials for making these roads and buildings have come from? Try and make a list of the materials and their probable resources. Discuss the list you have prepared with your classmates. Can you think of ways in which the use of these materials be reduced? Comment this. Why do we need to manage our resources? Not just roads and buildings, but all the things we use or consume. Food, clothes, books, toys, furniture, tools, and vehicles are obtained from resources on this earth. The only thing we get from outside is energy, which we receive from the sun. Even the energy is processed by living organisms and various physical and chemical processes on the earth before we make use of it. Why do we need to use our resources carefully? Because these are not unlimited, and with the human population increasing at a tremendous rate due to improvement in healthcare, the demand for all resources is increasing at an exponential rate. The management of natural resources requires a long-term perspective so that these will last for the generation to come and will not merely be exploited to the hit for short-term gains. This management should also ensure equitable distribution of resources so that all, and not just a handful of rich and powerful people, benefit from the development of these resources. Another factor to be considered while we exploit these natural resources is the damage we cause to the environment while these resources are either extracted or used. For example, mining causes pollution because of the large amount of slag which is discarded for every ton of metal extracted. Hence, sustainable natural resources management demands that we plan for the safe disposal of these wastes too. The present day global concerns for sustainable development and conservation of natural resources are of recent origin as compared to the long tradition and culture of nature conservation in our country. Principles of conservation and sustainable management were well established in the prehistoric India. Our ancient literature is full of such examples where values and sensitivity of humans towards nature was glorified and the principle of sustainability was established at its best. Activity. Observe various traditional practices for conservation of nature in your day-to-day life. Share within the peer group, make a report and submit. Comment this. Indian texts such as Upanishads and Smritis contain many descriptions on the uses and management of forest and highlight sustainability as an implicit theme. One hymn from Atharva Veda 12.1.11, later translated into English in the book Atharva Veda, the Sanskrit text with English translation, written by Devi Chand in 1997, reads: Yadayaste Prabhata Hiva Bantu Ranayam tu Prithvi Sanamastu. Babrum Krishnam Rohinim Prisvarpam Dhrubapam Bhumi Prispimid Traguptam Ajitohato Aksato Dhastham Prithibimaham 12.11.11 Atharva Veda. One, O earth, pleasant be the hills, snow-clad mountains and forest, O numerous cloud farm and protected earth. On this earth I stand, undefeated, unslain, unhurt. Another hymn that reveals utilization and regeneration principles from Atharva Veda 12.1.35 reads, Yatte bhumi vikhanami spiram tadapi rohatu mate madma bhim grabhi mate rada marpipam 12.1.35 Atharva Veda. Whatever I dig out of you, O earth, may that have quick regeneration again. May we not damage thy vital habitat on earth. During the Vedic period, both productive as well as protective aspects of forest vegetation were emphasized. Agriculture emerged as a dominant economic activity during the latter Vedic period. This was the time when the concept of cultural landscapes such as scarred forest and groups, scarred corridors, and a variety of ethnoforestry practices were evolved that continued to the post-Vedic period. Besides, a wide range of ethnoforestry practices were infused with the tradition, customs, and rituals and followed as a means of protection of nature and natural resource. Questions? Comment this. Forest and wildlife. Forests are biodiversity hotspot. One measure of the biodiversity of an area is the number of species found here. However, the range of different life forms, bacteria, fungi, ferns, flowering plants, nematodes, insects, birds, reptiles, and so on, found is also important. One of the main aims of conservation is to try and preserve the biodiversity we have inherited. Experiment and field studies suggest that loss of diversity may lead to loss of ecological stability. Stakeholders. Activity. Make a list of forest produce that you use. What do you think a person living near a forest would use? What do you think a person living in a forest would use? Discuss with your classmates how these needs differ or do not differ and the reasons for the same. Comment this. We all use various forest produce, but our dependency on forest resources varies. Some of us have access to alternative, some do not. When we consider the conservation of forest, we need to look at the stakeholders who are 1. The people who live in or are around forest are dependent on forest produce for various aspects of their life. See figure. 2. The forest department of the government which owns the land and controls the resources from forest. 3. The industrialist from those who use tendu leaves to make bidis to the ones with paper mills who use various forest produce but are not dependent on the forest in any one area. 4. The wildlife and nature enthusiasts who want to conserve nature in its pristine form. Let us take a look at what each of these groups needs or gets out of the forest. The local people need large quantities of firewood, small timber, and thatch. Bamboo is used to make slats for huts and baskets for collecting and storing food materials. Implements for agriculture, fishing and hunting are largely made of wood. Also forester sites for fishing and hunting are largely made of wood, and forester sites for fishing and hunting. In addition to the people gathering fruits, nuts and medicines from the forest, their cattle also graze in the forest areas or feed on the fodder which is collected from forest. Do you think such use of forest resources would lead to exhaustion of these resources? Do not forget that before the British came and took over most of our forest areas, people had been living in this forest for centuries. They had developed practices to ensure that the resources were used in a sustainable manner. After the British took control of the forest, which they exploited ruthlessly for their own purposes, these people were forced to depend on much smaller areas and forest resources started becoming overexploited to some extent. The Forest Department in independent India took over from the British, but local knowledge and local needs continued to be ignored in the management practices. Thus, vast tracts of forests have been converted to monoculture of pine, teak and eucalyptus. In order to plant these trees, huge areas are first cleared of all vegetation. This destroys a large amount of biodiversity in the area. Not only this, the varied needs of the local people, leaves for fodder, herbs for medicine, fruits and nuts for food, can no longer be made from such forest. Such plantations are useful for the industries to access specific products and are an important source of revenue for the forest department. Do you know how many industries are based on forest produce? A short count reveals timber, paper, lac, and sports equipment. Industries would consider the forest as merely a source of raw materials for its factories, and huge interest groups lobby the government for access to these raw materials at artificially low rates. Since these industries have a greater reach than the local people, they are not interested in the sustainability of the forest in one particular area. For example, after cutting down all the teak trees in one area, they will get their teak from a forest further away. They do not have any stake in ensuring that one particular area should yield an optimal amount of some produce for all generations to come. What do you think will stop the local people in behaving in a similar manner? Comment this. Figure a view of a forest life. Activity. Find out about any two forest produce that are the basis for an industry. Discuss whether this industry is sustainable in the long run, or do we need to control our consumption of these products? Comment this. Lastly, we come to the nature and wildlife enthusiasts who are in no way dependent on the forest, but who may have considerable say in their management. The conservationists were initially taken up with large animals like lions, tigers, elephants, and rhinoceros. They now recognize the need to preserve biodiversity as a whole, but should not we recognize people are forming part of the forest system. There have been enough instances of local people working traditionally for conservation of forest. For example, the case of Bisnoi's community living in western Rajasthan for the border of the Thar Desert. The conservation of forest and wildlife has been a religious tenet for them. These nature-loving people have for centuries been conserving the flora and fauna to the extent of sacrificing their lives to protect the environment. They are living with the basic philosophy that all living things have a right to survive and share all resources. The government of India has recently instituted an Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation in the memory of Amrita Devi Bishnoi, who in 1731 sacrificed her life along with the 360 others for the protection of khejuri trees in Khejurali village near Jodhpur in Rajasthan. Studies have shown that the prejudice against the traditional use of forest areas has no basis. Here is an example. The Great Himalayan National Park contains within its reserve area alpine meadows which were grazed by sheep in summer. Nomadic shepherds drove their flocks up from the valleys every summer. When this national park was formed, this practice was put to an end. Now it is seen that without the regular grazing by sheep, the grass first grows very tall and then falls over, preventing fresh growth. Management of protected areas by keeping the local people out or by using force cannot possibly be successful in the long run. In any case, the damage caused to forest cannot be attributed to only the local people. One cannot turn a blind eye to the deforestation caused by industrial needs or development projects like building roads or dams. The damage caused in these reserves by tourists or the arrangement made for their convenience is also to be considered. Figure Khejuri tree. We need to accept that human intervention has been very much a part of the forest landscape. What has to be managed in the nature and what may be the extent of this intervention? Forest resources ought to be used in a manner that is both environmentally and developmentally sound. In other words, while the environment is preserved, the benefits of the controlled exploitations go to the local people, a process in which decentralized economic growth and ecological conservation go hand in hand. The kind of economic and social development we want will ultimately determine whether the environment will be cons- conserved or further destroyed. The environment must not be regarded as a pristine collection of plants and animals. It is a vast and complex entity that offers a range of natural resources for our use. We need to use these resources with due caution for our economic and social growth and to meet our material aspiration. Management of forest. We need to consider if the goals of all the above stakeholders with regards to the management of the forest are the same. Forest resources are often made available for industrial use at rates far below the market value, while these are denied to the local people. The Chipko Andalan, Hug the Trees movement, was the result of a grassroots level effort to end the alienation of people from their forest. The movement originated from an incident in a remote village called Reni in Garhwal, high up in the Himalayas during the early 1970s. This was a dispute between the local villagers and a logging contractor who had been allowed to fell trees in a forest close to the village. One a particular day, the contractor's workers appeared in the forest to cut the trees, while the men folk were absent. Undeterred, the women of the village reached the forest quickly and collapsed the tree trunks, thus preventing the workers from felling the trees. Thus thwarted, the contractor had to withdraw. Inherent in such a competition to control a natural resource is the conservation of a replenishable resource. Specifically, the method of use was being called into questions. The contractor would have felled the trees, destroying them forever. The communities traditionally lop the branches and pluck the leaves, allowing the resource to replenish over time. The Chipko movement quickly spread across communities and media and forced the government, to whom the forest belongs, to rethink their priorities in the use of forest produce. Experience has taught people that the destruction of forest affected not just the availability of forest products but also the quality of soils and sources of water, participation of the local people can indeed lead to the efficient management of forest. An example of people's participation in the management of forest in 1972. In West Bengal, Forest Department recognized its failure in reviving the degraded Shal forest in the southwestern district of the state. Traditional methods of surveillance and policing had led to a complete alienation of the people from the administration, resulting in frequent clashes between forest officials and villagers. Forest and land related conflicts in the region were also a major factor in fueling the militant peasants movements led by the Naxalites. Accordingly, the department changed its strategy, making a beginning in the Arbari Forest range of Medinapur district. Here, at the insistence of a far-seeing forest officer A.K. Banerjee, villagers were involved in the protection of 1272 hectares of badly degraded Shal forest in return for help in protection. Villagers were given employment in both silviculture, silviculture and harvesting operation. 25% of the final harvest and allowed fuel and fodder collection on payment of a nominal fee with the active and willing participation of the local community. The Shal forest of Arbari underwent a remarkable recovery by 1983. A previously worthless forest was valued rupees 12.5 crores. Activity. Debate the damage caused to forest by the followings: A. Building rest houses for tourists in national parks. B. Grazing domestic animals in national parks. C. Tourists throwing plastic bottles or covers and other litter in national park. Comment this. Questions? Comment this. Water for all. Activity. Village suffering from chronic water shortage surround a water theme park in Maharashtra. Debate whether this is the optimum use of the available water. Water is a basic Comment this. Water is a basic necessity for all terrestrial forms of life. We studied in class 9 about the importance of water as a resource, the water cycle, and how human intervention pollutes and water bodies. However, human intervention also changes the availability of water in various regions. Activity. Study the rainfall patterns in India from an atlas. Identify the regions where water is abundant and the regions of water scarcity. Comment this. After the above activity, would you be very surprised to learn the regions of water scarcity are closely correlated to the regions of acute poverty? A study of rainfall pattern does not reveal the whole truth behind the water availability in various regions in India. Rains in India are largely due to the monsoons. This means that most of the rain falls in a few months of the year. Despite nature's monsoon bounty, failure to sustain water availability undergrounds has resulted largely from the loss of vegetation cover, diversion for high water demanding crops, the pollution from industrial effluents and urban wastes. Irrigation methods like dams, tanks, and canals have been used in various parts of India since ancient times. These were generally local intervention managed by local people and assured that the basic minimum requirements of both agriculture and daily needs were met throughout the year. The use of this tool Water was strictly regulated, and the optimum cropping patterns based on the water availability were arrived at on the basis of decades or centuries of experience. The maintenance of this irrigation system was also a local affair. The arrival of the British changed this system as it changed many other things. The conception of large scale projects, large dams and canals traversing large distances were first conceived and implemented by the British and carried on with no less gusto by our newly formed independent government. These mega projects led to the neglect of the local irrigation methods, and the government also increasingly took over the administration of this system, leading to the loss of control over the local water sources by the local people. More to know. Schools in Himachal Pradesh. Parts of the Himachal Pradesh and evolved a local system of canal irrigation called Ghats over 400 years ago. The water flowing in the stream was diverted into man-made canals which took this water to numerous villages down the hillside. The management of the water flowing in these ghats was by common agreement among all the villages. Interestingly, during the planting season, water was first used by the village farthest away from the source of the Khul, then by villages progressively higher up. These schools were managed by two or three people who were paid by the villagers. In addition to irrigation, water from these schools also percolated into the soil and fed springs at various points. After the schools were taken over by the irrigation department, most of them became defunct and there is no amicable sharing of water as before. Dams. Why do we seek to build dams? Large dams can ensure the storage of adequate water not just for irrigation but also for generating electricity as discussed in the previous chapter. Canal systems leading from these dams can transfer large amounts of water over great distances. For example, the Indira Gandhi Canal has brought greenery to considerable areas of Rajasthan. However, mismanagement of the water has largely led to the benefits being cornered by a few people. There is no equitable distribution of water. Thus, people close to the source grow water intensive crops like sugarcane and rice, while people further downstream do not get any water. The woes of these people who have been promised benefit which never arrived are added to the discontentment among the people who have been displaced by the building of the dams and its canal network. In the previous chapter, we mentioned the reasons for opposition to the construction of large dams, such as the Tehri Dam on the river Ganga. You must have read about the protest by the Narmada Bachao Andolan, Save the Narmada movement, about raising the height of the Sardar Sarovar Dam on the river Narmada. Criticisms about large dams addresses three problems in particular. One, social problems because they displace large number of peasants in and tribals without adequate compensation or rehabilitation. Two, economic problems because they swallow up huge amounts of public money without the generation of proportionate benefits. Three, environmental problems because they contribute enormously to deforestation and the loss of biological diversity. The people who have been displaced by various development projects are largely poor tribals who do not get any benefits from these projects and are alienated from their lands and forests without adequate compensation. The ousties of the Tawa Dam built in the 1970s are still fighting for the benefits they were promised. Water harvesting. A traditional technology is helping India's watermen save thousands of parched villages and transform the lives of thousands of villagers in one of the India's most arid regions in 2 decades of efforts of Dr. Rajendra Singh. 8,600 johars and other structures to collect water have been built in Rajasthan, and water had been brought back to a 1,000 villages across the state. In 2015, he won the Stockholm Water Prize. It is the most prestigious award which honors a person who contributes to the conservation and protection of water resources for well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. Watershed management emphasizes scientific soil and water conservation in order to increase the biomass production. The aim is to develop primary resources of land and water to produce secondary resources of plants and animals for use in a manner which will not cause ecological imbalance. Watershed management not only increases the production and income of the watershed community but also mitigates drought and floods and increases the life of downstream dam and reservoirs. Various organizations have been working on rejuvenating ancient systems of water harvesting as an alternative to the mega projects like dams. These communities have used hundreds of indigenous water saving methods to capture every trickle of water that had fallen on their land. Dug small pits and lakes, put in place simple watershed systems, built small earthen dams, constructed dikes, sand and limestone reservoirs, set up rooftop water collecting units. This has recharged groundwater levels and even brought rivers back to life. Water harvesting is an age-old concept in India. Khadins, tanks and nadis in Rajasthan, Bandharas and Tals in Maharashtra, Bundes in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, Ahars and pines in Bihar, Kuls in Himachal Pradesh, ponds in the Kandi belt of Jammu region, and Eris tanks in Tamil Nadu. Surangams in Kerala and Kattas in Karnataka, and some of the ancient water harvesting, including water convenience. A structure still in use today is figure for an example. Water harvesting techniques are highly local specific and the benefit are also localized. Giving people control over their local water resources ensures the mismanagement and overexploitation of these resources is reduced or removed. In largely level terrain, the water harvesting structures are mainly crescent-shaped earthen embankment on or low, straight concrete and rubble check dams built across seasonally flooded gullies. Monsoon rains fill ponds behind the structures. Only the largest structures hold water year round, most dry up 6 months, unless after the monsoons. Their main purpose, however, is not to hold surface water but to recharge the groundwater beneath. The advantages of water stored in the ground are many. It does not evaporate but spread out to recharge whilst and provides moisture for vegetation over a wide area. In addition, it does not provide breeding grounds for mosquitoes like stagnant water collected in ponds or artificial lakes. The groundwater is also relatively protected from contamination by human and animal waste. Figure traditional water harvesting system and ideal setting of the Khadin system. Catchment area, Khadin or cropped area, seepage, Khadin burnt, saline area, shallow dug well. Questions? Comment this. Coal and petroleum. We have seen some of the issues involved in the conservation and sustainable use of resources like forest, wildlife, and water. This can meet our needs perpetually if we were to use them in a sustainable manner. Now we come to yet another important resources, fossil fuels, that is coal and petroleum, which are important sources of energy for us. Since the industrial revolution, we have been using increasing amounts of energy to meet our basic needs and for the manufacture of a large number of goods upon which our lives depends. These energy needs have been largely met by the reserves of coal and petroleum. The management of these energy sources involves slightly different perspective from those resources discussed earlier. Coal and petroleum were formed from the degradation to biomass millions of years ago, and hence these are resources that will be exhausted in the future no matter how carefully we use them. And then we would need to look for alternative sources of energy. Various estimates exist as to how long these resources will last. If the present rate of usage continues, it is estimated that our non-petroleum resources will last us for about 40 years and the coal resources will last for another 200 years. But looking at other sources of energy is not the only consideration when we look at the consumption of coal and petroleum. Since coal and petroleum have been formed from biomass in addition to carbon, these contain hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur. When these are burnt, the products are carbon dioxide, water, oxides of nitrogen, and oxides of sulfur. When combustion takes place in insufficient air oxygen, the carbon monoxide is formed instead of carbon dioxide of these products. The oxides of sulfur and nitrogen and carbon monoxide are poisonous at high concentration, and carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Another way of looking at coal and petroleum is that they are huge reservoirs of carbon, and if all of these carbons is converted to carbon dioxide, then the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going to increase, leading to intense global warming. Thus, we need to use these resources judiciously. Activity. Coal is used in thermal power stations and petroleum products like petrol and diesels are used in means of transport like motor vehicles, ships and aeroplanes. We cannot really imagine life without a number of electrical appliances and constant use of transportation. So can you think of ways in which our consumption of coal and petroleum products be reduced? Comment this. Some simple choices can make a difference in our energy consumption patterns. Think over the relative advantages, disadvantages, and environment friendliness of the following. 1. Taking a bus, using your personal vehicle, or walking or cycling. 2. Using LED bulbs or fluorescent bulb tubes in your homes. 3. Using the lift or taking the stairs. 4. Wearing the extra sweater or using a heating device, heater or sigri on cold days. The management of coal and petroleum also addresses the efficiency of our machines. Fuel is most commonly used in internal combustion engines for transportation, and recent research in this field concentrate on ensuring complete combustion in these engines in order to increase efficiency and also reduce air pollution. Activity. You must have heard of the Euro 1 and Euro 2 norms for emission from vehicles. Find out how these norms work towards reducing air pollution. Comment this. An overview of natural resources management. Sustainable management of natural resources is a difficult task. In addressing this issue, we need to keep an open mind with regard to the interest of various stakeholders. We need to accept that people will act with their own best interest as the priority, but the realization that such selfish goals will lead to misery for a large number of people and a total destruction of our environment is slowly growing. Going beyond laws, rules, and regulations, we need to tailor our requirements individually and collectively so that the benefits of development reach everyone now and for all generations to come. What you have learned? Our resources like forest, wildlife, water, coal, and petroleum need to be used in a sustainable manner. We can reduce pressure on the environment by sincerely applying the maxim of refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle in our lives. Management of forest resources has to take into account the interest of various stakeholders. The harnessing of water resources by building dams has social, economic, and environmental implication. Alternatives to large dams exist. These are local specific and may be developed so that as to give local people control over their local resources. The fossil fuels, coal and petroleum will ultimately be exhausted because of this and because their combustion pollutes our environment. We need to use these resources judiciously. Exercises. Do this and comment this.